Well, I think quality software, the reason it's tough is because it means a different thing to different people. So in other words, if you're a software developer, then you might be thinking in terms of code quality, good architecture, things like this. If you're a designer, you're thinking, is the software easy to use? Is it easy to understand? If you're a product owner, you're thinking, does it meet the needs? Does it solve a problem? And as a business owner, you're probably thinking, does this thing even have a return on investment? So I think the key is to get all that, to have good software, you have to have all those roles working together. So number one, you have to have them all. And number two is you have to have a process that can make these different personalities and different groups of people work together. One thing I wish we would have done sooner is spending more time up front on a project and investing in design. I think, when you're building a software product, if you're building an app internally, you can sometimes get away with a piece of software that for the most part works. It has some features, it does some things, and you have people that are kind of forced to use it. They use it every day, so they get trained up on it. I mean, people have really high expectations of software because we're living in a world where you have Amazon and you can pull up an app and quickly order something, or an iPhone where it's really, really easy to use. Google, it's easy to search for something. So all of these things really push the standard upon any product that you're going to release. I'd say I never really had somebody that, like an individual that I always followed. However, a company that I always liked and was drawn to is Nike, and I just love the competitive spirit and their tagline, just do it. So recently I read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, and I was really drawn to his story because you could almost see him live that philosophy in everything that he was doing. He sort of had this goal, this vision in mind, and he just drove towards it, just one step at a time. And I love that just jump from, here's what I want to do, so I'm going to do it. And I think that's a great thing in business to have, because you have to have the confidence to go forward towards something, and there are so many variables in play that you can only plan so much. I think you have to have that daredevil spirit where you're just saying, look, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go towards it. Talk to your customers. That is the number one thing you can do. It's such an underused step in developing software, surprisingly, but it's also very easy to do, and the impact is enormous. So a lot of people will tell people when you're building software, hey, we want to go talk to your customers first. Who's going to be using this piece of software? Let's go talk to them. And sometimes we get pushback and we hear things like, well, if Henry Ford had talked to his customers, they would have told them to build a faster horse. And I always try to tell people, when you're talking to customers, you're not asking them, hey, what exactly do you want? How do you want your world to be better? It's more so you're trying to understand their problem. And I think in the case of the Henry Ford example, you wouldn't be asking them, what do you want, hey customer? It's more so, let me understand this problem. Why is the horse an issue? And maybe if you're Henry Ford, he learns things like, well, the horse is a little bit smelly, it gets tired, I have to feed it apples, sometimes it's in a bad mood, things like this. You understand the problem, and then after that you can use your creativity and your knowledge of what's capable with technology to then come up with a solution. And if you're Henry Ford, who knows a lot about engines and mechanical engineering, and these are his skill sets, he can take these problems and say, well, what is a creative solution with what I know and that can solve some of this? And then he comes up with the car. So I think that's what you have to think of when you're talking to customers, is you're trying to get a very deep understanding of what their problem is, so you can take what you know and be creative in offering a solution.
I think yesterday's CIO focused more on resourcing, making sure that businesses had access to developer resources, that infrastructure was in place and secure, and all that sort of thing. And those things are all still important. I think today's CIO, though, has to be much more tightly aligned with the business. There has to be a lot more creativity to the job. So the roles that today's CIO has to provide to the business teams are different. I think they're more creative. You have UX designers, you have people that are able to partner with the business and make them aware of what's possible with technology. I think that's what was missing in the past. I think what makes Slingshot unique is that we look at things holistically. So if somebody comes to us with an idea or a problem, we study that idea or problem, we look at competition, we engage with future users to learn about that problem from their perspective. We design, I would say we go through a phase where we design ideas and we test those ideas through user testing just to get feedback before we get into development. And if you were to compare us to other development shops, which I wouldn't say we are just a development shop, but if you were to compare us to those types of entities, they just take whatever is being fed to them and build it. And here at Slingshot, we don't do that. We want to make sure that our customers are spending their dollars wisely. And in order to do that, we have to do our research and test our ideas. And so we approach problems more holistically, which I think is what makes us unique.
Well, I think at Slingshot, what we're after is big change, big impact, a huge return on investment. And in order to do that, I think you have to be self-aware of what your own limitations are. You have to be self-aware what in your company is potentially holding you back from developing software that has a bigger impact. And I think that starts to drive you in the direction of, hey, what is it that it's preventing an impact? So instead of being focused on, hey, we're a software company, well, how do we develop software better? Which to me is more focused on, okay, how are my developers writing code? How are my designers designing? Instead, for Slingshot, it's like, well, are we making business outcomes for our customer? And when you do that, it sort of drives a different way of thinking, and you sort of become more of a partner with your customer than just a software shop. And I think that's really been the key to our growth and also our change, is always that we want to develop software in a way that increases the business impact.